Welcome to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio. I am Scott, and we've got Shane and Paris in the house. What's happening, my friends?
Yo. Ready for bed is what it is. What I am. It's bedtime. I'm tired.
It's brain dead time is what it is. Like this episode is all about like how much crap is going on. It is overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
But if you try to keep track, it's overwhelming.
It is, and that's why I want to remind you guys that you can actually make a difference in what's going on in the world by voting with your dollars. And what I mean by that is jump on over to patriotswitch.com/prepper talk, and you'll understand what we're talking about. You can actually make a huge change in your spending habits and take away money from woke companies and woke agendas, and the crazy news cycle will get smaller as a result of doing that. And we've all taken the challenge, and that's why we back the Patriot Switch. And I found some fantastic products that have actually, these are like just the monthly stuff that I normally use, like deodorants and other stuff, like fantastic, American made, American sourced. Even the packaging and the shipping materials are all right from here in the United States. So check that out, patriotswitch.com/prepper talk. And you'll actually end up getting to talk to one of us. And then additionally, I want to read this quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. The desire of gold is not for gold. It is for the means of freedom and benefit. Now, if you've been listening to the show for a while, you know we love gold and silver. And we want to tell you guys about an opportunity over at ITM Trading. They can do a free consultation with you. If you go to itmtrading.com/prepper talk, they will give you a free consultation to help you understand how you can use gold and silver to build your wealth and really build your future freedom. Check it out, and let's just jump into it. Like the current news cycle, the current world events are kind of nuts. Right now, as we're recording this, it is October 4th. We had the national advisory go off earlier today, right? That phone check. Russia had one too. And I'm trying to find the news article that talked about a couple other countries doing it the same day. But it's interesting because Russia, if you go to the website Drudge Report, they're like the third thing mentioned there. Well, second thing mentioned there in the middle column is nuke incoming, warning echoes across Russia as the public prepares for World War III. And that is like the most clickbaity title because the article is all about, hey, they're doing an emergency alert system today.
Well, I think the thing that I would point out is that, yes, this is an emergency alert test of our phones and all. I believe it's far more than just phones. It's I think everything that's connected to the internet at some point or somehow. But our country's really not telling us everything. They may say, "Oh, we're doing a test." Okay, why? What's the purpose? Whereas in Russia, they're saying, "Watch out! We're going to get bombed. It's nuclear. Everybody get ready." Is anybody panicking? I don't think so. It's just kind of, I won't say normal, but they're not panicking because they're more prepared and more aware than we are. Whereas our government keeps most people in the dark on purpose. I mean, so as to not create panic, I'm sure. But at some point, there's got to be some accountability for some awareness. So when things happen, it won't be total chaos, which it will be anyway. I mean, that's part of the agenda, if you ask me.
I think part of it too is that, most of the family values, for some reason, they are really killing it in the West. They're trying to just suppress all that. And other countries around the world are continuing to develop those things. I was watching a thing the other day, and they were showing the difference in the military. I think it was Dan Bongino actually showed it. He says, this is a commercial for the military in Russia, and this is a commercial for the military in America. And the military in Russia was like totally like manly, just masculine. Like it was just, they were doing amazing things, like really manly things. And the one in America was like, oh yeah, I can dress up and be a girl. And if you're trans, you can come join the army. We'll pay for it, like this. And I'm like, we're dead, dude. We're dead in the water.
Yeah.
Another funny one was I saw a meme that says, I think it was real. Actually, it wasn't just a meme, but it was like, the United States finally wins a math competition against China. And it showed the United States math team, and they were all Chinese kids.
Chinese.
No, I didn't see that. That's hilarious.
And that actually was, if I remember right, was a news story.
Yeah, it was a legit story, but I think somebody did a meme about it. Like, yeah, this is even in America, the Chinese are still winning. You know what I mean? Like,
well, it's funny because like there's so much going on at any given second. Like Russia, it's a whole other level. Like, look at it this way: there's a comedian who talks about gangs, and he talks about like mobsters and bad guys. He's like, dude, you go in the wrong neighborhood, as a white guy, you're toast.
mm-hmm.
But he's like, but if you go in the wrong neighborhood as a white guy who sounds Russian, you're so fine. You're totally okay. You walk in the neighborhood, it's like, hey man, you know what neighborhood? You know, this is a bad neighborhood. He goes, this is a bad neighborhood? You don't know bad neighborhood. Like,
I know about
it's hilarious. But it's true.
Like, oh, you're Russian. I'm not gonna mess with you.
They're like, oh, that's the only white people are afraid of, right? Everybody's like, dude, a Russian gangster. Everyone's like, oh yeah, back it up. We're good. I don't.
I guess you should learn the accent.
Part of your preps. This is, you heard it here first. Prepper Talk Radio. Part of your preps is
write this down.
Learn your Russian accent.
Practice your accents. Figure out who's scary in what places and mimic that, because then it's like it's a deterrent. You don't want to have to pull out a pistol every time there's a problem. If you can use your voice to deter danger, man, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like that alone, like they're creating more Ivan Dragovs, Rocky Balboas, and we're creating sheeples.
Yeah.
It's like the deep state is focusing on building the sheeple state. And that's really the saddest thing about what's going on in America right now.
Yeah.
Well, here's a piece of news I heard this morning, and probably everybody else did too, who's paying attention, is that mortgage applications are the lowest since 1996. But what's happening with real estate prices? Almost nothing right now.
Flatline.
They've gone down a little bit, and they're kind of holding it. And that's probably because low inventory, high demand still. I think what I'm seeing is obviously builders and sellers can still buy down points for these buyers and still make that loan affordable. How long is that going to happen? And when will housing prices really start to turn downwards? So, I mean, that's a big event. 1996.
Yeah, that's 20.
Imagine the
30
price
years ago.
imagine what was the price of housing back then? It was significantly less. And interest rates,
which market you're in, it's different in a lot of ways. Like if you're in the Utah market, it's 4 times lower. If you're in the Arizona market, about 3 times lower, right? California, probably 10 times lower. I don't know. California's always been crazy, but like if you go to the Midwest, it's maybe half.
Right.
But that's still only 20 plus years, 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's not that long. I think about like when my parents bought their first home in Colorado, when we moved to Colorado, they were like freaking out that they were buying a home so expensive because we were from little town Idaho, like this little tiny, and my dad built the house for like 30 grand. And it was a sweet house. And then we moved to Denver, and guess how much our house cost?
Probably 3 times that.
Smaller house, similarly sized lot, but not as good. $80,000. And when they sold that house in 2012, it was like $380,000 that they sold it for. And now that house is almost $1 million.
Wow.
That's how insane the markets are getting.
Yeah. Well, you call the markets are insane, but how much the dollar has lost purchasing power is really mostly what it is, right?
Yeah, I watched a lady today on a podcast talk about the price of rents compared to how much rents prices have gone up as compared to income. And the chart for rent prices was like it was a 90-degree angle. And the chart for income increasing was like it was like more like a 10 or 15-degree angle, maybe 20% or 20-degree angle. Mm-hmm. So the cost of living for sure, and the cost of goods are going up way faster, way more than than the income that we're getting. And so that's why it's so important. That's why there's so many statistics right now about how the side hustle industry is going to be increasing dramatically. So if you I'm doing a video. I just did a video when you guys are listening to this, it'll be last Friday, about the importance of making money versus being able to manage your money. Because if you can manage your money effectively and you go make more, you're going to do the right thing with it. But if you don't know how to manage your money, making more money is just going to cause you more problems. So learn how to manage your money first and then go make more money. And so go check out my video at Financial Self-Reliance on that if you're interested.
Or you can do both at the same time.
Yeah.
And just, I was going to say a curse word, but we're not going to say that just to help people. But it's some kind of show, right? You can,
Yeah.
like you could, I remember when I first started making big money when I was younger. I was like, dude, half of it was out the window immediately. Instead of going out to eat at Taco Bell, I was now going out to eat at Ruth's Chris. And I'm like, what? $10 dinner turned into an $80 dinner. All right, that's okay. After about 4 months, I was like, this isn't very wise.
Where's all my
I
money
should have
going?
another $20,000 in savings if I'd been smart, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then I shifted my mindset. And for those of you listening, I could have saved a ton of money. I could have been in a much better situation then. Had I been really focused on prepping back then, on financially as well as everything else, I'd have been in a much better situation the rest of my life, because that was 25 years ago.
Wow.
That was $20,000 25 years ago is probably worth 100 now.
Well, invested properly, you're right. Even if it was just invested in food and food storage and other things, that'd have been a good investment at this point.
Well, okay, let's just do the math on it. So if you go find an inflation calculator, right? Let's go to an inflation calculator from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and we're going to put in $20,000, and we're going to say that was back in 2000. Actually, that would have been 1999. So it wasn't quite 25 years ago. Just in cash today, it's the same as having almost $40,000. It's $37,373. But what's crazy is then you think about how much inflation has hurt us. Commodities, the housing market alone.
Well, the fact that thing doubled in just 20 some odd years, that shows you right there that things are moving the wrong direction fast.
Well, doubled, cut in half.
I don't know who listened to the Republican debates, but the opening lines of the Republican debate was something along the lines of, 2 out of 3 Americans are struggling. 3 out of 4 Americans think the economy is going the wrong way. 85% of Americans consider personal finances a source of major stress. I mean, we're all feeling it right now is the time to really get smart and simplify your life. That was our last episode, is simplify your life. And part of that is with what your consumption is. The way that the world, one of the ways, there's a lot of ways, but one of the ways that the globalists, I think, are controlling us is they keep us in the hamster wheel cycle of consumption, and then they keep us in debt. And so we can never, it's so hard to get in debt, to get ahead when you're in debt up to your eyeballs all the time. So we really need to get out of debt. We need to get off the consumer rat race cycle, and we need to get back to the basics of preparing for our future and then learning the skills necessary to keep ourselves protected.
Well, and another big part about the system is that it requires a consistent, continual expansion of debt to even function. Debt has to increase. Currency quantity has to increase because of interest rates. And as interest rates go up, more of that currency needs to exist and need to be created because it doesn't exist. And with all the defaults we've seen in banking, we're going to see a lot of defaults with these college loans, right? For school finance, for credit cards too, because now there's no more moratorium on payments of school loans.
Mm-hmm.
And so
what's interesting with those too is I've got associates, people I know that are like, I'm just not going to pay. I'm going to make the minimum payment because was it 15 years, 20 years, they have to stop collecting on it anyways because of the new laws.
Yeah,
Well, that's only if it's on an income-based repayment plan.
Yeah,
from what I understand.
Yeah, the
So if they don't-
income-based repayment plans, it's forgiven after 20 years.
20 years, yep.
And I know a guy that's making $200,000 a year. He's a lawyer. He's making the minimum payment, and he intends to never pay it off because the income adjustment. And I'm like, what is wrong? Like, first of all, what's wrong with the mindset that that's okay? Because the people who are paying for that are you and I and everyone that's listening to this podcast. And that dude makes $200,000 a year. And I know that dude's not paying his rent and he can afford to have that wiped out because somebody else is paying some of his bills. He can pay to wipe that out himself.
Yeah, but he's got to pay for his $1,200 a month car payment, right?
You're actually not wrong. It's $1,100.
Dang, dude.
But still, think about this. Like, the interest rates are up. Housing prices are crazy. The cost of education is out of control. Which brings me to the first time we've talked about Jordan Peterson in a long time, but he's launching an educational program where the cost of a degree is free.
Yeah, I looked at that website. I'm excited.
I'm like, what? And that's going to be some really good quality content because he's connected with all the best educators, focusing on what actually makes a difference. First and foremost, go make your bed, right? But the entire educational system is the greatest scheme to take people's money and put them into bondage.
That and the medical system.
That also, the medical system as well, because you cannot declare bankruptcy to get out of a student loan.
Yeah.
They're guaranteed to get that money unless you get into the debt forgiveness program, and then after 20 years they write it off and it saves them money anyways. But you're in bondage for that whole time. And guess what you're going to do as soon as you get that wiped off? You're going to go and spend a crap ton of money on credit cards and everything else because, hey, I can get out of this too, right? You're just completely missing the point of being self-reliant and sustainable on your own.
Yep.
And that's the insanity of the rising generation that's below us.
They're so entitled.
And I feel bad because it's something that my parents preached against. Don't go into debt. Don't do all this stuff. And I was dumb and I still got in a little bit of debt. But the kids younger than me, they're like, dude, yeah, I just bought this new car. And I'm like, oh, sweet. How much money are you making? Oh, I'm only making about 60 grand a year. And I'm like, dude, your car payment is as much as a mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
You can't afford that. That's okay. That's okay. My mom and dad are helping me. Or, oh, that's okay. So-and-so's paying my rent, or I don't have to pay my phone bill, so I don't have to worry about this. It's like,
or
dude,
they live at home.
They live at home. Like, but it's getting to the point where you almost have to live at home. And it's crazy. So then comes the question, okay, how do I prep on a budget? How do I survive what's going on in the world? Well, first of all, you have to unsubscribe from the world and change how you're doing things. Because if you try to do it the world's way, you're just going to get further and further in debt. And when things get tough, what are you going to do? You're going to raise your own debt ceiling? How does that make any sense?
Yeah.
I don't know. I see that as going to be the continually biggest threat against the modern American family is the debt crisis in America. That is hurting the cost of living more than anything because your interest rates are going higher. And then if you can't afford something, you take out another loan to change your tires. You take out another loan to fix your car. You take out another loan to pay for the diapers and the food that you're buying. Like, what?
Yeah, I just heard of a guy who has a 32% interest rate on his credit card.
Yeah.
30. What the mother?
Most of the introductory APRs that I'm seeing are like 21%.
29, 30%. Yeah.
Standard APRs are 29. It's like insane.
It is.
But what do you do?
If you don't know any better,
Right?
It's what credit cards are, especially for us who have those who have, I'm gonna say us, those who have bad credit scores, and that's a whole nother thing to talk about as too. I don't even want a credit score. It just makes it easier to go into debt, and that's obviously part of the plan, right? Let's like.
Here's what you do. You go over to Financial Self-Reliance and you subscribe to that channel too. And then you hit me up on my email and we talk.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you do. I'll help you with your finances if that's your interest. But, getting back to some of the crazy things that are going on in the world, I watched another clip. I went to, many of you know and remember Todd Nielsen and his training program. He has every month here in Utah in our local area, he does a training on concealed carry. And I went to it last night and it was awesome. And this morning I saw a video of a woman at a red light. Some motorcycle guy comes up and jumps off his motorcycle, jumps on her car, and jumps on the back window and smashes it in with the two kids in the back seat. And she gets out and she just goes after this guy like a mama bear, which was awesome. But then you can see this dude reaching inside of his belt like he's got a concealed carry of his own. And thankfully he didn't pull on her in the video. And so I was just like, wow, bro, what is going on in this world right now that we really have to really get to the point where we know how to defend ourselves and we know how to be prepared, not just with food and water and other things like that, but also be prepared if we're out driving around and some dude attacks our car. Road rage is up the wazoo lately too. Like, what in the heck is happening? So there's a lot of crazy things going on in the world right now that we should be prepared for. That was just something I saw the other day or this morning actually, and I was just like, wow.
Well, I think we see in the news headlines, we see a lot of talk about, another civil war, World War III. We see it more ourselves because that's what we're looking for, right? We want to see what's going on. But I think even the normal person, the average person who is not in our world, in the prepping world, is seeing these types of headlines more often, and maybe it's causing a little bit of trauma. I mean, because that's the goal, right? I mean, that's what the last couple of years were all about, is creating trauma, creating fear, and then it's about programming. So I think you and I and Paris, we talked a little bit about remote viewing, right? You guys know what this is, right? Remote viewing, and it's very curious. And I think everybody needs to at least delve into this a little bit, what's going on, because what that is doing, it's really kind of programming the future. It's kind of
it's following the program down a natural course to predict what is what could be a realistic future. Because Cliff High, who I don't know if you guys know,
and we are referring to Cliff High as well.
Like he talks about that if it's far enough away, the natural course of the flow of what they're programming, the flow could end up in this particular future. However, if it's far enough away, we still have a chance to change the course of that flow, and
just by talking about it, just by bringing it up, talking about it. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
And one word that was brought up in his software, he has a software that scours the internet and such, and others do something similar. But a word that caught my eye is, and I don't know if you guys have heard this, but the word ejecta. And if you listen to Cliff High, you'll know what I'm talking about. You know what he's referring to in the way of ejecta? What that is?
I don't.
I can't say.
Ejecta is what is ejected from a nuclear blast. Right?
Interesting.
Ejecta. So that's a word that has popped up in not only his search but other searches. And I brought up the remote viewing topic because it is very complex. We couldn't even really get into it here. But if you guys go and do a little bit of research about remote viewing, it has to do with, kind of like I mentioned, kind of programming the future, not just watching where it's going down a certain path. Is by I can't properly explain this, but and it's kind of like picture a vision board, right? You have a vision board. You want to get this. You want to have this. You want this experience. You want to be at this point in your life in a certain amount of years. And as you see this, as you put your mind through this, you eventually accomplish these things. And I think it's far more than just that. It affects your future, not just the way you act, the things you do right now. It actually can, I hate to say it, but kind of manipulates time space. It manipulates the future somehow, and I'm tending to believe this a little more and more. Call me crazy, but as we get into all this kind of talk about conspiracy, which, you know, conspiracy ends up being fact. We know that people are conspiring against us, and those plans are eventually come to fruition. If we, and I'm unable to explain this properly, but hopefully you understand where I'm going, is that if we can see everything and watch everything around us that's going on, and plan and for our own future, for our preparedness, for our level of preparedness, for the positive thinking of where because in prepping for me, right, I'm looking forward to a collapse, and I think a lot of us are, right? Because it's going to be a positive event in changing everything that's wrong, or a lot that's wrong in this world. So that's kind of where I see, for me, remote viewing. It is kind of a very psychological. It is very much what is, well, I can't think of the word.
Kind
as
of a
well.
Spiritual thing, actually.
It is very spiritual. It's very much how we can communicate on other levels between each other, right? It's psychic. It's a level of psychic, and I think humans have that ability. I've experienced that and I say that because I've experienced that myself recently, and it was very vivid. I won't go into it. Maybe I should, just to kind of explain what I'm talking about, so you can understand that better. But it is, I think, something we need to put more thought into, more brain energy into, about seeing where our future is going to be. I mean, I'll show you my one of my what I have in my future right there, right? That's in my future. My future looks very positive. You know, it even though civil war is not a positive thing for most people, it probably will be for me. You know, I don't see if you understand. Know if you guys understand where I'm going with all this, right? If this makes any sense to all of you.
Some people think of like vision boards, right? And they put their pictures up of everything they want to focus on. But you're talking about seeing it spiritually, right? But also
that it actually exists in the future for me.
Yeah, what's interesting about that is there's quantum computers that can follow. Imagine the collective human mind that's all these people projecting into the future what they want. And so this system that Cliff High has, and this remote viewing potential, can kind of follow the dots of this collective, all these people that have all these vision boards, and it follows the dots to what are the big things that could end up affecting all of us. You know, your particular homestead, Shane, isn't going to affect me. Well, it will affect me a little bit because I'm invited if I bring my proper, if I bring the proper
supplies,
the supplies to get in, right? Exactly. But the overall human collective has also got this unknown kind of third mind, if you will, vision board that's out there that these guys have been able to tap into with this type of stuff. And so that's kind of really interesting to see, because it kind of, honestly, as I listened, that one video you sent us the other day, Shane, that really conflated, quite frankly, very well with scripture. And I was like,
jump to Mark 11:20, I think 20, let me pull it up. Mark 11:24. This is where a lot of people get this from. And if you look at the King James Version, it's a little bit harder to read and understand. So I'm going to use the simplified version, the New International Version. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. But the King James Version, therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that you receive them, and ye shall have them. It goes right along with that. And one of the interesting things, I've been reading a lot about fluoride and calcification of our bodies, and the fluoride that goes into our drinking water actually dilutes your ability to do these things.
Interesting.
Because it calcifies a portion of your brain. That portion of your brain is the mind's eye, if you will. So it's quite fascinating that in these times, who'd have thought, hey, what's 2023 going to be about? Did you think we'd be talking about remote viewing? Did you think we'd be talking about the mind's eye?
I didn't even know what that was a few weeks ago.
Right. And what's interesting is there's more and more information being thrown out at us through the news cycle to try to distract us. But there's also more and more truth. The Great Awakening is happening, and there's more and more truth. If you watch and you try to filter it spiritually, you're going to see the truth, and the truth will set you free.
Yep.
And it's like we see all the stuff that crazy Joe Biden's doing, and they're busting him on it, and we're finding out the truth. We know about the election frauds. We know what's going on with Trump. We know what's going on with Russia, but not through the mainstream medias, but through everywhere else. And it's quite fascinating how at this point and at this juncture in our lives, we're learning more about everything than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
And things that have been hidden for a long time, aka all the conspiracy theories that are turning out to be conspiracy fact. I know that this is going to continue to be the case. We're going to see more and more. We're going to experience more and more things in our life that point out, hey, wow, this is true. It's always been true. And now you have evidence to prove that it's true.
And I think that's all part of the plan to keep our minds moving so fast that we don't ever take the time to stop and relax and breathe and just and think and ponder. And that's something that the scriptures talk about a lot. I don't know, for those of you who out there who watched and have been watching The Chosen, one of the things that I love is several episodes, if not every episode, there's a section where Jesus is like, look, I just want to go off and pray for a minute. I just need a minute to go off and pray on my own. And he leaves his disciples to go off and pray on his own. That to me is an example of what we should be doing. He kind of leaves the world behind and he goes off and prays on his own. So part of the distraction, I mean, I was listening to a podcast this morning and the guy was saying that, a couple of years ago, even the news cycle was a couple of days, 2 or 3 days. Now it's like every 15 minutes. And like you might ask your buddy, hey, what was the news cycle yesterday? Well, I don't even know, because the news cycle keeps us so caught up in the sky is falling and we're going to die that we don't take time to realize, no, everything's actually going to be okay if we just stop, take a deep breath. And that's part of the simplification that we were talking about in our last episode too, is just to simplify. And then you can actually really assess what you need in the moment and then what you're going to need going forward. You can stop the consumer cycle. You can stop the panic cycle, the fear cycles, and you can just find some tranquility and some peace and start to really learn, okay, what's the next step for me and my family, and how do I keep my family safe? There's things going on in our schools. We might have another episode up here coming pretty soon about some of the updates that are happening. I don't know if you remember when we had a lady on last year about the stuff that was going on in the schools. And so there's just things that we can do as parents and as families. And we're going to talk about that in our next episode, is some of the ways that we can prepare as families. But I think as we're out and around, we need to learn we need to be aware and watchful, but not in a panic or in a just constant state of our brains just moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour. We need to slow things down.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that I've seen a lot of lately are large banks, hedge funds, people who are credible in the financial industry have been coming out and giving warnings about a collapse, about crash, about chaos in the financial markets in particular. And I think there's been so many of them, they're starting to fall on deaf ears, right? So, this guy said nothing's happened yet. And when they say yet, it's been 2 days, right? It said this a week ago, right? It said it's been 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Yeah, it's only been 2 weeks. Nothing's happened. Nothing's going to happen. No, it's starting to culminate. And, we saw the major bank failures. Was it in March, right? And then March was years ago. It was forever ago, right? Time passes so quickly, like you're saying, Paris. And the news cycle is so quick. You pass a couple of months by, it was might as well have been years or decades ago. but they are all coming together. All these little things are coming together as a warning, and they should be taken at least for face value and begin to prepare and be aware of it. And maybe it's not true, maybe it won't happen, but if you're aware, you're prepared, right? You can be prepared.
So that reminds me, guys, make sure you go check out preppertalkradio.com and go to the resources or the free stuff page. Sign up right there for our email newsletter, and also to get the downloads for our prep guides, basically your bug out bags, your bug in bags, your kits. But also on that page, on the resources page, if you scroll down, that is one of the most important libraries we think every prepper should have. These are books we have. These are books we love. It goes everything. We've got Wild Edible Plants to the Prepper Survival Bible, but things that make more sense right now, the Survival Medicine Handbook, Homestead Canning, all the Back to Basics books. Those are the things that are going to actually give you a better quality of life and help you find peace of mind. Get off the digital stuff and focus on reading physical books. They'll help you create a better life now and in the future. But make sure you join our Facebook group as well, Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance, because we have weekly lives where we get into this a little bit deeper and help you and everyone else that's listening to understand how to prep better and that it's a way of life and not just about doomsday.
Yep.
I think with that mindset, of just living ready-minded as opposed to the sky is falling panic, those are the non-preppers. The sky is falling panicky people. A real prepper sees these events and goes, okay, and gets back on their focus. And that's where we want you guys to be is to just say, oh, okay, and then get back to your focus. You're going to have a much higher quality of life.
Amen.
Yep.
Any closing remarks, you guys?
Well, I was just going to say that, the idea of this constant bombardment desensitizes us to what is really going on. And that's how it goes back to this. I think it goes back to the analogy of the boy who cried wolf. At some point, something is actually going to happen. And so many of us will be desensitized because, well, October 4th came and went and nothing really happened. But that doesn't mean that something's not going to happen at some point. So just stay ready. Stay frosty, as they say, and stay ready-minded because something's coming. We just don't know when. And if you're prepared, it won't matter.
And the longer it takes, the harder it's going to be to be ready for it because you let down your guard and you think it's just so difficult to mentally to hold up and to do something that's difficult for a long time and see no results or very little results, right? Yeah. I mean, like gold and silver, they're getting whacked. They've been getting whacked this last week. And for a lot of us stackers, it's a little bit demoralizing, right? It gets tiresome.
Time to buy.
It is time to buy. That's the mentality you need to have when you see these things. Oh, it's time to take advantage. Rather than say, "Oh man, I'm getting slaughtered. What am I going to do? I'm not going to sell. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to hold, right? I'm going to wait. I'm going to be patient, and I'm going to somehow have the stamina to hold on until I can't hold on any longer, right? And it may, these trials and turmoil may last longer than some of us can bear.
Yeah,
I think that's the hard part. It gets depressing. Like, bring it on already. I'm ready for this. And that's, I think, where a lot of preppers, they say, I'm ready for this collapse, which I'm one of those,
Well, the interesting thing too, is so many people, as they get into prepping and they go through the cycle, they hit that point where they're like, well, nothing's ever happened. So why am I prepping?
That comes in your mind. It does.
It does. And I'm like, man, I love when that happens because that's when you really start to take it seriously or you drop out. And I'm sorry for those of you who drop out, but those of you who really take it seriously after that, you realize it's not about the doomsday. It's about the everyday. It's about the higher quality of life. It's about being able not to just weather a storm, but weather the storms.
Yeah, like I think I said on one of our last podcasts, it's not about the chances, it's about the consequences. The chances may be low and getting higher every day for something to happen, but the consequences, if something does happen, are life-changing to say the least.
Yep.
And with that, thank you guys for tuning in to another great episode of Prepper Talk Radio. Make sure you hit that like, you share this thing with everybody. Get this podcast out to those who are struggling in their preparedness. We want to help them find that voice of calm, that voice of reason. And hey, you know what? We're getting into the holidays. This is the season. And the reason for the season is prepping. No matter how cold it gets, no matter how hot it gets, no matter how stormy it gets, prepping will get you through those storms. Catch you on the next episode.
See you next week.
Take care.